JJ is EVP of Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z's company. She works with the likes of Beyonce, Rihanna, Jay-Z, you name it, she works with them. She was formerly General Counsel and Head of Business Affairs for Rock Nation. She was previously at a law firm and was a lawyer for Rock Nation, and Jay-Z poached her to his company. And she was recently named Billboard's 13th most powerful woman in music, so very accomplished lady. Rachel Sklar is the co-founder of Change the Ratio and of the Li.st, of which I'm a proud member. She's an advocate for change, for women's empowerment. The Li.st is an incredible group of powerful women, just sharing and exchanging ideas and supporting one another. And it's what we need more of in our world, in our industry, certainly. She is a writer. She's written for everybody, for New York Times, and she's always, in fact, whenever I turn on the television or I pick up a paper, Rachel's in it. So she's a great sort of spokesperson for women. Forget Sheryl Sandberg. It's Rachel Sklar. So thank you, Rachel, for being here.
Thanks for waiting for Jay-Z to poach me, though. Waiting.
Okay. So I think before we go into the sort of core of this discussion, I think it would be interesting just to get some background, other than the information I provided, on our two guests. So I'll start with you, JJ. So I want you to just start by telling me what you do specifically. What does an EVP of Rock Nation do?
My job basically is we have a whole roster of artists and athletes and our brand Rock Nation. And one of my, the thing that I'm most in charge of is finding really great strategic brand alliances for all the artists. So everybody from a Jay-Z and a Rihanna down to, our artists who are just kind of coming up and have established a little bit, like Haim in capital cities, to more emerging ones like a Wardell or a Big Mensa. And we have a bunch of athletes as well, from Robinson Cano and CC Sabathia, Skylar Diggins. And we try to find great partnerships with them, and as well for our brand Rock Nation, where we are, building very quickly, but building into, hopefully a more household name. And we have certain events that we throw every year, and we try to find great partnerships for that.
So, how did you get your start in the music industry?
When ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. I was, my mother was 16 when she had my sister and 19 when she had me, so I didn't really have anybody kind of like guiding me into my next phase of life, which was definitely not doing what she was doing. So I, thank God, was good at school. I went to college, and I went to University of Washington, and after college was not a lot. If you didn't have somebody else guiding you, you're kind of like, I don't know what to do. So I looked at TV. I was like, I could be a lawyer or a doctor. So I was like a lawyer, but I was also from Seattle. And it was at the time when like Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and all these bands were like up and coming, and I was like, I'll be a music lawyer. And that's literally how I decided to do it.
So you went from being a lawyer to marketing.
Yeah.
So how did you make the switch?
Well, it's more like business development marketing. So I had done all of Jay-Z's deals over the years. He basically took hobbies and turned them into businesses, and I was really tired of looking at paperwork. Like, I could not do it anymore. And in the music industry, you kind of end up doing the same thing over and over again. Just your clients get a little bit bigger, so I wanted more of a challenge. And I went to Jay and was like, what can I do something else? And he said yes, thank God. And then we turned that into like me doing, I knew the brand really well. I knew him really well. I could probably give you that 95% accuracy deals that he would and wouldn't do, or would or wouldn't do for the brand, and that's how I turned it into something, building it more into business and entrepreneurship.
Rachel?
Yes.
So you started as a writer?
Actually, I started as a lawyer too.
Oh, you started as a lawyer?
Yeah, but the polar opposite of your experience. My parents gave me a lot of guidance in the way that a doctor, lawyer, mom and dad will do. And I didn't actually want to be a lawyer that badly, but my parents prevailed upon me to apply. Don't worry, just apply, just take the LSAT, it's fine. And then, before I knew it, I was in law school. But I actually loved it. I loved law school. But I just didn't love the practice, the paperwork, but it got me to New York, and then I was a lawyer for a few years, and then I was like, I'm going to be a freelance writer. How hard can that be in New York? And So that I learned a lot of lessons about money and not having it. But that's okay, it's all good. And then sort of the internet kind of saved me, because I was able to write, like I couldn't get anyone in print to sort of give me the time of day, or I was like, the best thing in the world you could do in, you know, like 2001 was like get a blurb in Time at New York. It's like, yes, I got a restaurant blurb, I found a restaurant that was opening in my neighborhood or whatever. But I started working for Media Bistro as a media blogger, and all of a sudden I was writing about media people, and so they had to pay attention to me, and that was how I got into the media world. And then just under a year in, I met Ariana Huffington. Not that there's any other Arianas.
I call it Ari.
Do you?
No.
No, I only ever called her Ariana, I think. She was an amazing boss, but I met her at a party at Nick Denton's, and I prepped for that party. I had this this one guy I dated who had also been a model. I was like, you are my arm candy. I had a special sparkly tube top. I was so excited, and I had a Greek friend teach me how to say, welcome to New York in Greek. So I just had my one thing to say to Ariana. But I said my Greek spiel to her, and her face was like, she didn't really do anything. And I was like, so I blurted out the only other Greek word I knew, which turns out to be like a very bad swear word. I don't know I don't want to offend anybody here, I'm going to say it. Oh, you know it, okay. Because I had a Greek boyfriend and a Greek best friend, and so I was like, I had heard that word a lot. Anyhow, so she laughed, and then we bonded. And then she poached me, so I was poached by Ariana. So that's how and then once I was in the Huffington Post, it was what Sheryl Sandberg says about being on a rocket ship. I was on a rocket ship, and I had, and I was sort of in the right place at the right time to be the non-Ariana face of the brand. And so all of a sudden I started doing television, and it's what you said about not knowing enough to know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. I did not know anything. And so I did not know that I probably shouldn't have been talking about politics on television as a Canadian who had never really participated in politics before. But you know what? You can get up to speed. It happens. So that was how I got into the media side of things.
And then when did you become a militant feminist?
So it's funny, because in some ways I've always been a militant feminist, and in other ways I really had to come to it. So covering media, you're covering how media covers everything. And so I covered, Katie Couric being the first female anchor, and the fact that was such a big deal. Did she have the gravitas? I was like, didn't Tom Brokaw host the Today Show? I'm pretty sure he did. And the double standards were appalling. So I would write about that, and I would pay attention to, the lists, all the lists, and there would always be guys, and they would always be white, and I would notice the absence of me and people who looked like me on these lists, and so I would start calling them out. That's my Canadian right there. And so I started, but it was really Hillary Clinton running for the presidency in 2007, 2008 that activated me, because I was aghast at just the double standard, and because of the Canadian thing, and because I hadn't actually been part of the sort of the political journalism industrial machine for any other cycle, I didn't have Clinton baggage, and I didn't have previous associations about it. To me, Hillary actually kind of reminded me of Elise Keaton in Family Ties. That was how she seemed like a competent mom who looked after everything. That was the way I saw her, and I was just aghast at the sexism, frankly. And so I just started writing about that and getting angrier, and writing about that more, and getting in fights with people, and I actually experienced a little bit of backlash because of it, because particularly in the HuffPo sphere, I was very pro-Obama, and I wasn't anti-Obama. I was just anti the way Hillary was being treated. It was so that was I was getting a very clumsy education in how to finesse the various fault lines, and I had no background in it, but I was activated. So that was how I got into this. And then I guess I stayed into this, and I started getting into the tech world more, purely by accident. I mean, I was in the digital realm, and so I was already a woman in tech, but I didn't know that, and I thought I was working for a media company. I didn't really think of HuffPo as a startup, because that wasn't how we thought of things then. No one had framed it that way, but I started dating a guy in 2008 who was more in the tech scene, and because my life was election events, that's all I really wanted to do, and so I would join him at whatever he was doing, and then we broke up right after the election, and I realized like all the election events ended, and I was like, I don't really have a social life anymore. But I had joined Dodgeball, which was the precursor to Foursquare, so I would just like, who's on Dodgeball, where are people? And I live on the Lower East Side, so I'd be like, I'm just gonna go to this bar where people are at. And that's how I got into the tech scene. And so, you know, it's like sort of like rinse, repeat. Like, I was in media, and it's like, media's great, everybody's so cool, there's so many amazing, diverse people. Wait a second, why are there only white men on this list? And then I got into tech, I was like, tech is great, it's so amazing, there are all these amazing, diverse people. Wait a second, why are there only white men on this list? And so, and that was how I started Change the Ratio, because New York Magazine had a cover story in April 2010 that was like, dudes upon dudes. And I was like, wait a second, this doesn't look like what I know. And I sent an email out to about 20 women in the space, and I was like, let's get in front of this. I'm tired of writing the next day, where are the women's stories? And it grew from that. And then the list eventually grew out of that swelling email group, which started with like adding more and more emails, and then a listserv, and then suddenly it was like this sort of like back channel women's version of the Old Boys Network. And so that's my long-winded tip.
Well, we need you, so good work. Thank you. And JJ, was there a point, I'm always curious with successful women to know who or what or how they got to where they were, and who helped you, or was there a sort of turning point or an obstacle that you overcame that helped you sort of transcend and get to the position you're in?
Again, it's a little of that ignorance is bliss. Like, I didn't know any better than not to try to do what I was doing. And so I did it without anybody's influence, and I did it without knowing that it was going to be hard, because I did not know how difficult it was going to be an entertainment attorney until after I became an entertainment attorney and everybody else was trying to become one. I did have a really key moment where somebody, he was working, when I first started out of Cornell Law School, I was at Hughes, Hubbard & Reed, and the guy who interviewed me to be there said, I walked in, he had we have these like, you have these job fairs like right between your first and second year, and it was at a hotel here, and I walked in and he had long hair and a ponytail, and he worked at a Wall Street firm, and I was like, okay, this is weird. And he was like, oh, you want to be an entertainment attorney? I'm like, I'm not supposed to be telling you this, I'm trying to get a job. And he was like, don't worry, just come here for a year, and then after that I'll help you. And he did, actually. In the meantime, he started working at Polygram Records, and then who then became my boss, this man named Elliot Groffman called me and said, here, I hear you're looking for a job, and you know, I'm moving over from this other firm called Rubin & Dursky, and we represented this whole host of clients, and you know, it was like 98 or something, and he was like, oh, we have, you know, Dave Matthews Band and Marilyn Manson and Sugar Ray, and oh, we have this young hip hop artist named Jay-Z, and I was like, I love Jay-Z, and he was like, oh, okay, and I was like, okay, I got that job. And so he really did help me like get that job, and he's been a consistent person in my life. He's not even in the business anymore, and that was kind of the turning point for me getting it.
How is it being a woman in music and a woman in hip-hop?
Well, for a long time, I was like the only woman, really. There's a few ladies here in front of me who've been working in it as well. But, you know, I didn't really notice that I was the only one for a long period of time. I just thought that's how it was in general. But then I started looking around and like law and banking stuff, and I realized it really is what it was in general. No, there's just no other women. And I think, you know, the ironic thing about hip hop, and even though it, you know, the words used and the language and stuff, at the end of the day, all the guys I represented were raised by single moms. and powerful single moms. They gave them a lot of respect for single moms. And I've never been so respected than my hip hop artists and clients, than way more than the guys that have worked in, you know, presidents or CEOs or whatever in the music industry. Those clients gave me the utmost respect.
Okay, Rachel, you're giving birth in 4 weeks.
I mean, I hope it's 4 weeks.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I actually have no idea if you can see, like, she's moving around. I can't tell if you can see or not. I might be at that stage where, like, sorry if it's distracting, but it's a thing. I'm mostly feeling okay. I'm still kind of active and I get a little tired, and I haven't, you know, like, is this wood? Is it, I don't know, wood. You know, I've had a good pregnancy.
So you felt good from the outset. You weren't.
Oh yeah, I was like, well, it was three things. It was like, can I swear? It was like holy fuck, because how can it not be? I was 41 at the time, and I had been barraged by messaging about how hard it was going to be. And this wasn't hard. And you know, then the second was like, this is hilarious because I can't even believe this happened this way. And then just the overall was like, I'm pregnant. Oh my God, I'm pregnant. I can be pregnant. I am pregnant. I'm pregnant. So I was happy. And I knew it was going to be complicated. But like right at that moment, I was happy.
Love that. So, JJ, so talk me through, you have amazing twins, a beautiful boy and a beautiful girl, who I adore. So tell me about your process. So tell me, you know, there was a point in your life when you thought, I want to have kids, you know,
right.
What happened?
Well, you know, it's an evolution, of course. I think not everyone, but a lot of women, when they think, okay, you know, I'll get older and I'll marry somebody and I'll have kids, you know, it wasn't really like that. I have horrible taste in men. So, and then there's always, you know, and it was always a concern of mine, because I was like, really, like, am I really going to have children with any of these men? And so I just kind of came to this realization that it probably wasn't going to happen traditionally like everybody else. And I started doing, I guess, a little bit of research on it, not a lot. And, you know, there's always adoption, there's, you know, insemination, and, you know, what's frightening is there's really not a lot of research to be found and not a lot of people sharing it. There's actually no books. There's no books on, like, how to. And so I made a few appointments. I made a few with adoption agencies. I made a few with fertility clinics, and it just was proving it was going to be very difficult for me to have a kid via adoption in New York and living in New York. And then I met with a few fertility clinics, and they didn't make it sound any easier, but I felt at least I could have a part in the process, because adoption seemed really scary to me, and you have zero part in the process. It's like so left up to will. And I just decided to go for it. Like everything in my life, it's just kind of like, oh, it was a natural progression, but I can't point to some time that was like, it was it, other than the time that I was like literally just like turning 40, and I was like, I gotta do something, you know? If all these stats are right, that you can't have babies after a certain age, then maybe I should do something about it.
So for both of you, well, for you first actually, so how has life, no, the question I want to ask is, how did friends and family react to you wanting to have children and to you being pregnant?
Well, I actually didn't tell a lot of people about that. And the reason is because my whole life when I was growing up, it was like they were told, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, you know, my grandmother was like, you can't go to college, that's not what we do, you know? It's like, so I just didn't, you know, whenever I got anything. And by the way, I didn't tell people when I applied to law school. I didn't tell people, you know, I just did it.
Rachel, how is it for you?
So it's like...
Well, you wrote a blog about it.
Well, yeah, but not, I mean, only when and part of the funny thing is that I actually only wrote that post initially because I was so worried that like Valleywag would write about it and frame it as like, Rachel Sklar got knocked up and is alone, you know, like, that was like in my head, I was so paranoid about that part. But it ended up being great, very therapeutic to write about it. But initially, you know, I instinctively felt the thing that you were articulating, which is that you need your friends.
Yeah.
So it's funny because women get this messaging that you're not supposed to tell, like, oh, don't tell people in the first trimester, don't share it. What if it doesn't happen? But for me, I was like, if I never get to do this, if something doesn't work, like, because I know that's how it goes, like, I need my people to know this is a reality for me, because I'll never be the same. Like, you know, I am pregnant, this is happening, and I need this to be acknowledged by my people. But so telling people was a joy. I mean, first of all, that's like the greatest news to be able to spring on people, because you can set it up so great. I remember,
that is true.
Yeah,
that is
I remember really early on, like I'd come back to Toronto when I was still with the father, and I went, my closest high school girlfriends, we like hung out, and so all their kids had been at this camp. They were all in my play, so we like watched the video of the play together, and I was like bursting for the kids, for like finish the damn play and like go away kids. Not that like, the kids were wonderful, but I just wanted to tell them. And it was just so fun because my friend was in the kitchen, I kind of sauntered into the kitchen after, and they had noticed I wasn't drinking Diet Coke, which I was a Diet Coke fiend, but I stopped cold turkey. And my friend Jenny was like, what can I give you? And I was like, I don't know, do you have any pickles? She was like, pickles? She's like, what? And I was like, or ice cream? And she was like, oh. And she just like hugged me, and we started hugging in the kitchen. My other friends came in and they're like, what's going on? And like we were both kind of like crying, and that was just fun. Like, it's just fun news to tell. My parents was a little bit harder because I really wanted to frame it. But they were excited, but they were just like stunned because I have an older sister, and neither of us had done it, and they had just figured it wasn't going to happen. And so that was, but it was still awesome.
Have you felt the gaps of not having a partner in the mix?
Well, yeah, I don't know any differently, so not really. And I built my tribe. I have 10 godparents for my 2 children. Many of them are here tonight. Raise your hands, everyone.
That's awesome.
And my niece, who just moved out, who was living with us for a long time, and so yeah, I built a whole little nation for them. And so like I said, I don't know any different. Like, when I miss somebody, I'm like, oh God, this suitcase would be easier to put in the car if some guy was doing it. But I don't know any differently. So to me, I can't miss anything I never had.
I want to sort of stay with the way that you sort of juggle, because obviously you have a high-powered job and then you have twins. So what's a typical day like in your life?
Chaos. It starts in the morning. I have them by myself and wake up with them, and it's me, just bonding with them in the morning and getting them ready, and we spend some really quality time, and then the nanny comes at 8, and if I can stay a little bit later, I do that. Sometimes I have 8:30 in the morning meetings, which, then I kind of have to get up beforehand and get ready to go out the door the second she gets there. Or, I try to maintain some sanity for me, because I don't want to be like, we were having this conversation, like, I don't know if anybody else's parents did this, but it's like, oh, you know what I gave up for you? It's like, I didn't ask. Like, so I never want to have that resentment toward my kids. So, like, I'll do Soul Cycle like 3 days a week as much as I can. And I'll try to have my own time. And then, and it's work, and then I'm checking in, seeing what they're doing, whatever. And then I try to get home to see them at night, at least the majority of the 5 days. And then after that could be, out, dinners, on the computer answering emails and stuff. But, funny, before I became the chairwoman of the advisory board for Dee had invited me to come to the conference. And I think the first day, like I came, and there was something called Mompreneurs, and I was pregnant at the time, but nobody knew it. And there was the woman who started the knot, or...
Carrie.
Yeah. Is she the one?
Carly Roney.
And she was saying what she was doing, you were mentioning this the other day, like she would come home from, I mean, she would be at work and she would notice, like, you know, some of the women would be like around 2:30 or 3, like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment, or oh, I'm not feeling well. And really what they were doing was going to get their kids, and they didn't want to talk about it. And I literally am like, I gotta go get my kids. Does anyone have a problem with that? And then like in the mornings, like, you know, one of the people I work with is like, you know, he'd have a meeting at 7:30 in the morning. I'm like, I can't do that. I can only meet at 8:30. And what are they gonna say? You know, so I really took that to heart. And I was like, if I'm gonna really be a role model and I'm gonna, you know, be a single mom and, you know, to my kids and to other people, like, I'm gonna start showing that I can be a productive member and a productive executive and have children. So that's what my day is like, constantly reminding them I can do in a day what it'll take them a month. The men in my office.
And Rachel, how prepared are you to what is to come?
I'm not sure about that. I want to ask you more about how you did it with twins. Yeah, I mean, like I'm prepared-ish. I'm sort of so it's hard to tell if I'm just very cool about this or if it's the pregnancy hormones, because I haven't been hormonal during my pregnancy. I've been really chill. And I haven't had mood swings, and I don't know if it's because I live alone and there's no one to be like, pick up your towel and your socks, or if it's just like because I'm zen. But I've heard that other women experience it, like I call it pregnancy Prozac, because so I haven't been stressing that much. But recently I have what I call terror contractions. Like, not actual contractions, but just like moments of terror, and like they say about contractions, like they last a minute, and then you just like, you gotta get through it. And so I'll just have like these flashes of pure terror, like, oh my God. And then I'll just get through it and be like, it'll be fine, because it has to be fine. It's kind of arrogant for me to think I could screw up something that's been happening for millennia. Yeah. So that's how I, you know, frame it to myself. Obviously there's an incredible amount of stuff to be learned. I mean, the act of making a registry is a crazy thing, because it's like you're like, I don't know what, like there's 5 kinds of boppy. There's like, what is a sleep sack? Why are there 10 different ways to like, things for your baby to sleep in? It's like there's all the like these strollers are bananas. And so I just cribbed from my friends' registries, and I'll figure it out, and that's what everybody keeps on telling me is I'll figure it out, and I hope I'll figure it out. But I like, at minimum, you know, like I have boobs, hopefully they'll work for the purpose they're intended for, and that will be like food, and then the rest of it will fall into place. But seriously, I'm just like, boobs don't fail me now, you know? Like, but if they do fail me, because that happens too, then I'll just figure it out. What are the options? There's no other options. So, is we're ready? I don't know, is that ready? That's ready as
pretty ready.
It's as ready as you can be. Actually, the interesting thing about JJ's twins, obviously it's definitely harder to have 2, but so, you know, with my child, when he was very, very young, when he woke up, he would wake up sort of crying and wanting me and demanding me, and I had to sort of, you know, frantic mother, and I'd run in, and whereas JJ's twins keep each other company. It's really amazing to see. So they would wake up and just go goo goo gaga to, you know, to each other, and they sort of eat together and sit together, and so they have this kind of wonderful bond that keeps them sort of happy and not needing as much.
So did you put them in, like, are there twin bassinets? Like, do they sleep together? I actually have I don't know.
No, I put them in 2 separate big cribs. I didn't need another adjustment for them to go to like a small crib to a bigger crib. So they've been in the same cribs that they're in today.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it hardcore. Like my mom was 16. Like, you know, it's like babies are born in ditches. Like you can't overcomplicate it. It's like, it's not that, it can't be that deep. Like it can't be. Like it's amazing that we can give birth. It's an amazing thing, but you can't overcomplicate it. They don't need the, you know, $10,000 anything. You know, you don't need to be rich. Like unfortunately,
Which is
I've
good.
done well.
I am not.
But don't. You have to. There's so many options. By the way, and you're never going to buy them expensive clothes. It's ridiculous. They grow out of them and piss on them and shit on them. There's no reason. And there's so many people like they want to give you stuff. Like you can have anything I have. What do you want? And that's people want to do that. Mothers get it because they're like, I got it. Like this is like no joke. I had so many hand-me-downs. I had to like get rid of my hand-me-downs.
Most thing I want your advice. that is already useful. I'm just gonna keep listening.
Actually, the hand-me-downs thing is very interesting because I remember when I was pregnant, I was offered lots of hand-me-downs. I was like, I don't want I want to buy these like really cute clothes from the really cute kids stores. And actually now I'm sort of calling out my mum friends saying, do you have more? I need more things. And they do. They grow out of them so fast, and the hand-me-downs are a godsend because if a child's wearing something for 3 weeks, it's just not worth buying those really super cool Gucci baby sneakers.
Those are gifts. People can gift them.
Yes.
That's it.
I mean, I'm not a poster child for holistic wellness. You heard me talk about how I gave up Diet Coke the day I found out I was pregnant. Like, I'm sort of like Diet Coke. I live in a 3rd floor walk up. That's my gym. I'm not that person. I'm not that person. I really had plans to do prenatal yoga. I totally did, but I just don't. But at the same time, what I did do was like I gave myself a psychological break when I needed one, and I recognize and the baby thing was like a part of it. I was doing the baby countdown, the like what can work, what can not work. Could I afford it? I can't afford it. How can I afford it? Should I try and do a reality show, get Rachel pregnant? Like I went as far as writing up like a proposal that I almost sent to a friend at CNN, and then another friend in television actually of mine, a mentor, said, money shouldn't be the thing that's stopping you. Like you should, if you're gonna like get yourself knocked up on television just because you can't afford it, then there you have options. Like think about those options. And so it was all part of it was part of things. And actually I almost didn't do the camp thing because I was like, that's like knocking time off my fertility clock. And like ironically, it was the opposite. But it certainly wasn't something I could count on. So I think the best thing that I did for myself was give myself space to think about this stuff and allow myself to make some decisions based on it. If I could do it again, like knowing now what I obviously had no clue about, like I would have talked to more people about my angst about it. I was sad. I didn't tell my parents because I didn't want to upset them. And so my parents were like, we'd written you off, as opposed to my parents, who are my best advocates, doing the deep dive into like, Rachel, we pulled these 5 articles for you, and here are fertility clinics, do you know, like, so that sort of thing. So I think I can't speak to the holistic wellness side of things. I can only speak to what I would have done differently, which was like give myself a break and take space to look after what I really wanted.
That's true too. It goes to when you're trying to get pregnant from IVF. I was actually told by one clinic, the first one I went to, that I could never have a child by IVF, and I was like, I'm not accepting that. I will not accept that. And a lot of these big ones, the bigger ones and more well-known ones, they don't like to have women over 40 because their statistics go down. And so I'm happy to tell you which one that was, Cornell. And I think it's horrible, because if I would have listened to them, I would not have my children. So I was like, no, this is not happening. And then, I did look into it, and it's like, yes, I didn't, who doesn't like a glass of wine? So I didn't drink as much. I was healthier. I was working out and got into this mind space. And then I found another place that was much smaller, Center for Reproductive Health on 69th and Madison. And it was a little townhouse, and it was awesome. And they were like, literally, they told me that after a blood test. Like, that's it. And then you know, he was like, oh no, you just take these pills and that's going to help you, and you know, you just got to stay calm. And by this, you know, the third time I was with them and trying to get impregnated, you know, I was just like, look, this is great. Like, you know what? I'm going to relax. I'm going to take this time for myself. I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to say no when people ask me to do things and not feel guilty. And, you know, and it worked. But the other thing is, I will say, is time is not on your side the older you get. And one of the other things is, you know, when it was the third time, and, you know, it's all about your period and your cycle and mine started early. I happened to be in, like, I think I was in Arizona going cross country with a friend of mine, and I was like, shit, I gotta go back to New York. And we like drove to Vegas. I flew back to New York, you know, had all the tests. It was the perfect time. And then it was over the 4th of July, and I was supposed to go to St. Bart's. Who doesn't want to go to St. Bart's? Okay, like, oh, I mean, is it really gonna happen? I don't know, three times, I mean, I can skip this. And I was like, fuck that, like, I gotta do this now. And that's when I conceived my kids. Again, like, you know, we can try to put it off as long as we can and make excuses. Oh, I met this guy, and I don't know, it kind of could be. Or, you know, I'll just, you know, I know Halle Berry did it at 48. We don't know how Halle Berry had a kid at 48. Like, I have no idea. I can't speak to her. She's not called me and told me. But, like, you know, she's got a lot of money and a lot of doctors working for her. And to me, and one of the reasons why I agreed to do this, is because I wanted to tell those two stories that, like, you don't know, and it's not on your side. So, you know, you have the rest of your life to fall in love. You don't have the rest of your life to have kids. Even by adoption, I know it gets harder the older you get.